So today I'm going to talk to you about a concept known as T3 pooling. And this is really not something that I knew very much about at all when I started my journey to wellness. And really, it was only a few years after being diagnosed with Hashimoto's that I did my own research and came across this concept. But I think it's a really important one that we all should be aware of. And I think very often a lot can go wrong when people don't have all the information at the outset. When I look back at my early days when I just fell ill, I definitely think there was a really good chance that I was having some experience with T3 pooling. Why do I say that? I was actually dealing with very regular and very frequent panic attacks. They were happening daily, and a lot of days they were happening more than once. And if I'm really honest with you, it came as a shock because I'm not naturally an anxious person. To the contrary, I'm quite the opposite, but I'm maybe, I'm slightly maybe highly strung just because I'm a type A personality and like to do as much as I can in 24 hours and make the most of life. I definitely think it's genetic. My mum's like that, my dad's like that, my brother's like that. We like to live life in the fast lane. We used to go by the motto, all of us that will sleep when we're dead. And it wasn't really till I fell ill that I kind of really had to reassess how to live my life. But anxiety was never really part of the picture. And all of a sudden to be dealing with panic attacks, it just didn't make any sense to me. And my blood results with my doctor was normal every single time they did it. So no one was giving me any answers. I didn't understand it. They labeled me as depressed and severely anxious. They put me on antidepressants, gave me beta blockers. Nothing worked. If anything, it just made everything a lot worse. So why am I telling you this? Because I want you to understand what T3 pooling could look like symptomatically. So I was dealing with panic attacks. I was anxious. I was feeling jittery. I couldn't sleep. I had insomnia. I had brain fog. I was fluctuating between being really, really hot. I couldn't regulate my temperature to being freezing. I was frequently sweating and having lots and lots of palpitations. And my gut was a mess. So I was dealing with frequent dumping as well. So I was losing a lot of weight. So when I first got wind that I had had Hashimoto's and learned more about it, I then thought, well, maybe I must have been hyper first and then moved into hypo, had Graves and then moved into Hashimoto's. But actually, now the more I understand, I think it's more likely that I actually was hypo and had Hashimoto's from the outset. But because of my very, very low cortisol levels, which I had at the beginning. And I know that because a couple of years into being sick, one of the very first functional tests I did was an adrenal stress profile test. And at that point, I was already feeling a little bit better. And my cortisol was literally flatlined. It was slightly elevated in the morning and then completely flat for the rest of the day. So if anyone understands cortisol, the pattern of cortisol should be highest in the morning and then it should kind of gradually reduce and get to its lowest in the evening. So, and that's there to support your circadian rhythm so that you are, preparing yourself for sleep and your melatonin hormone can kick in to support that sleep. So when you're having very low levels of cortisol in the morning and you're not having a lovely cortisol awakening response, which happens within the first hour of waking, that's a really good sign that your body really isn't functioning properly. But when it comes to our thyroid, when we don't have enough cortisol in the body, what happens is that the T3 can't actually make it into the cell. So if you think about hormones, they generally work on a lock and key mechanism. They bound to a protein in order to get into the cell. And if you think about the doors being blocked, so they just literally can't get in, the doors are locked, so they can't get into the cell. So what happens with the T3 is it's pooling in the blood. It's just sitting there, not being able to be utilized. And this is the concept T3 pooling. So when there isn't sufficient cortisol, the T3 can't get into the cell. This is incredibly different from reverse T3. So when we have reverse T3, and these things are very often confused, when we're dealing with reverse T3, we're really more looking at a profile where someone is dealing with either chronic stress or high stress or bouts of high stress. And it's more really when you're dealing with sort of ongoing chronic stress. The body, what happens is that the enzymes that help with that's instructed to convert T4 to T3 is kind of told to just, not prioritize this right now, because when we're stressed, we've got lots of other things we've got to prioritize, as I discussed in my video last week. So please go and watch that if you haven't done that yet. So in order for the body to cope with stress, it's just not going to prioritize converting T4 to T3. So what happens is the body will then shunt out any excess T4, T3 and get rid of it via the reverse T3 pathway. And it's something that happens all day long, every day, whether there's high stress or no stress, but it just increases during periods of stress and chronic stress especially. So why am I telling you all of this? It's really important because very often people on levothyroxine are not seeing the benefits of their medication. And the reason for this is because we really need to understand the full picture. We have to understand that when we're looking at our thyroid, we have to understand what's going on with TSH, T4, T3, and in some instances, reverse T3. But in a case of T3 pooling, it's essential that we understand what's happening with your free T3. We need to understand whether there are excess T3 in the blood so that we can then identify that there might be an issue with cortisol. And we can then have a look at your adrenal stress profile to see what are your cortisol levels throughout the day. Is it high? Is it high in the morning and gradually reducing, or is it very low in the morning and very high at night and you're dealing with reverse cortisol? We need to understand what's going on there, because adding levothyroxine into the mix is likely to make you feel a lot worse. You're likely to be dealing with increased anxiety, increased insomnia, increased irritability, and really not feeling very well, because all that additional T4 that's coming in via levo is just being pulled in the blood once it's converted. So it's not making it into the cells. You're not going to be feeling better. So this is why the whole picture is so, so important, and why working with someone who understands the thyroid is essential. So I really hope that you have benefited from the information I've shared with you today. If you have, please like and share the video. Also make sure to subscribe to my channel so that you can be notified for when I do the next video. And if you want to understand a little bit more about this, you can go and have a look at my blog. I've written about reverse T3 and T3 pooling, and the link for that is below. And also, if you want to understand how to support yourself, you can always enroll for my group program, which will be starting in the middle of March. And the details for that is also in the link below, or you can just reach out and book a discovery call with me, a breakthrough call. And also that's the same if you want to do one-to-one work with me, you can just book in for a call, and we can talk about your health and look at the best possible options for you to try and get your health back on track. So I hope you found this helpful, and I'll see you all again soon.